Bazaar is intended for mature, open-minded audiences only. If you are easily offended, we suggest you turn this wacky shit straight off.
It shouldn't surprise me because, like, throughout this whole process of the last month or 60 days, 2 months, has it been? Fucking A.
Yeah.
Everything has just sort of conspired to make me realize how fucking dumb people are. Because I was going to say, it wouldn't, like, it's just like, who would have a fever and go to the casino? But I was like, nope, stupid fucking people.
Well, my first,
sure do it.
Yeah, you're right. And my first question when I heard that this was going to happen was, who is going to go out to a casino right now? Christopher had an interesting answer to that question.
There was a casino that opened, I don't know, I think Eastern Washington or in Idaho, and they had some really stringent, did I say that word right? They had some really strict fucking guidelines about what they were able to do with reopening, and one of them was a capacity issue. So I don't know what the, like 25 or 40% they were allowed to open up to or decided to do that. And there was a 3-hour wait to get into the casino. 3 hours.
So there you go. A 3-hour wait to catch all your death.
I've been down, dude. It drives me nuts because my dad's in the same situation I am. You know, he's in dialysis and everything, and they can't wait to get up to Manson to go play their.
Yeah, Mill Bay. That'll be one opening up. And I keep thinking about that. It's like, well, that's right on. It's an hour away from here, but the people that live in Wenatchee go there. They're going to come back, and we're going to figure some shit out. And all these casinos are going to be the biggest test because they're basically doing all the things that we thought wouldn't happen for months. It's all of a sudden just here. It's everything. It's crowded. It's crowds. You can put whatever rules you want and all the signs you're going to leave on the seats or whatever the fuck. It's crowds in an indoor place. Smokers, I think they're allowed to smoke in casinos still. Yeah, that's probably like a forever thing.
Another big breaking news thing that this is totally shop talk. I apologize, but one of the casinos over here, I think it's Angels of the Wind, announced last week that they're going completely smokeless. I think they're the only one. And we're all just like gasp. Like, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a cigarette smoker.
It may be time.
So,
it may be.
But here's the thing. Like, with the second that happened, we started texting, and my data guy chimed in and said, "You know what's really interesting? We had a double-digit growth 1 year in specifically, and it never left. And that year was 2006 or 2008 when they outlawed smoking in bars. We had a double-digit growth in people and revenue, and it never stopped.
So people had a place to go to smoke, huh?
Smoke and drink and.
So that means that a large portion of this crowd will be smokers. At least a good size of the crowd will be smokers, which are high on the list of people who are extra vulnerable to this thing. So double the experiment, double your fun, I guess.
I don't know if there's any credence to that article that was in the Sun the other day, or the Daily Mail, was it?
What's that?
Smoking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that it.
I know.
Where do you believe, and what do you believe, and how do you believe? Yeah, Daily Mail.
It's a rag. Don't get me wrong, but it's entertaining.
Yeah, but it gets a lot of scrutiny. How do you get away with it? How are you still an entity at this point? When you, I don't know anything about the Daily Mail.
Just like the Inquirer. I mean, they basically can say whatever they want. There's certain laws that they fall under.
Well, you see, that's a good.
So they can claim, they even though they say, oh, this is news, they can claim, well, no, it's actually just entertainment. You know what I mean? So they can basically say whatever they want.
So it's satire channel?
No, absolutely not.
No, but they get a little tabloidy.
They're in my opinion, I may be wrong. I've spent too much time on the Daily Mail, maybe, but they're like a step above TMZ for me. Like, they. Yeah,
I don't think they're crazy. They're not like Inquirer level.
It's not like Bat Boy Strikes Again.
No.
Just pull up the homepage. It's all politics right now. And I mean, maybe it doesn't. Sometimes it leans one way more than the other, maybe. But they rip both sides. I don't know.
It's an interesting side, but it's an interesting analogy, I guess, that John Mark, that to compare it to the Inquirer. Even though I don't think it's necessarily that far into the tabloid spectrum, but the Inquirer, half of the reason that thing is still around is because they have and continue to break actual stories. And because they're so fearless, like Bad Boy. I mean, would we even know about Bad Boy if it weren't for the Inquirer? CNN still won't touch Bad Boy, but they've done this. And yeah, there's 100 Bad Boy stories in between, breaking, Trump's affairs that ended up being true, breaking the O.J. Simpson was an abuser months before he killed Nicole, breaking these actual stories. I'm trying to think. There's a brand new documentary on Amazon, and there's an old one on Amazon for free, or if you have a Prime membership. The other one I had to rent, but they are different enough. If you're really curious, I love the tabloid world, not because I follow them and believe them, but I just love everything about them. I love the culture. I love the weirdo shit. I love that the cover can have, UFOs and Elvis sightings and actual political things all at the same time. I love the cheapness of the whole thing. It's a fascinating story, and they sort of talk about the arc and how, yeah, they realized that they were writing all this bullshit in the same way that the WWE, WWF realized that they were scripting these things, but everyone knew what it was and went along with it. And there was enough, I guess, real athleticism, if I can make it's not a tit for tat. It's not a perfect tit for tat analogy, but the Inquirer has broken some real things. So it's kind of like there's no source that is 100% dismissible.
For sure. Here's my theory on that, though, is that maybe places like the Mail and the Inquirer can break those stories before, like, quote unquote legitimate news outlets do, because they're not afraid of anybody coming after them if it's not true or not, because you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they don't have any interest in necessarily fully vetting a story, so they can just be like, yeah, this sounds good, let's just do it.
Yeah. Was that someone's stomach that just got muted?
I don't know. I gotta know.
Fucking neighbors, like, I don't know why they're doing it right now, but like almost every fucking day at 3:00 sharp, they fucking fire up this little dirt bike and like tear ass up and down the alley for about 15 minutes. And I don't know. I think they're just blowing off steam or something.
We're free.
Every fucking day. But today it's 6:30 and there's 2 of them. Going up and down the
We're starting a party.
That's just a good time.
COVID bike parties.
Lyle, that's just a good time.
Actually, speaking of COVID parties, you see that shit? Walla Walla, Washington. Well, Washington's just about had it, I guess. And I feel like the rest of the nation is close behind us because we've had it longer. But Walla Walla is making headlines, national, international headlines for these groups that have been getting together and organizing COVID-19 parties, much like people used to do with the chickenpox, to encourage this herd immunity, even though the CDC and just about everybody is now recommending that we don't do that because we don't know how this thing works. Now, I know that in one of the previous episodes, we talked about how in China, they're allegedly getting reinfected. Most of the stuff that I'm seeing right now says that we don't know if that's legit. So I don't think we know enough. I don't think we have concrete proof that people are getting reinfected with it. But
I'll tell you,
it seems possible.
I spent a few minutes today looking through. Okay, so I was looking through Facebook, Twitter,
Pornhub.
Not so much on Instagram because people generally don't tend to post that kind of shit on Instagram. But so
yeah, we all pretend the world's fine on Instagram.
The other one I was looking at was Flipboard.
I don't know that one.
So and I was just kind of like flipping through, as they say, and looking at headlines for these articles and stuff about COVID, and like they were literally 50-50 on saying the opposite things from each other.
I know.
From all different sources. And I was just like, you know what?
Bonkers.
I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. And I just threw my hands up in the air and I shut my phone off and like I walked away from it. I'm like, I don't I'm gonna stay home as long as I can. I'm gonna wear my mask. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, because allegedly the WHO is now. I mean, allegedly, I haven't clicked on any of these stories because I'm with you. I'm like, I'm not listening to anything. But allegedly, the WHO is now applauding Sweden by the way they've handled this, which is to not really handle it at all. Just keep things open and encourage people to wash their hands and wear masks if they go out. And their numbers apparently are right. But then the next story you'll see will be like Sweden's numbers are worse than most places that size because they weren't following. It's very, very frustrating. Incredibly frustrating. And now the conspiracy theory stuff is really, really taking hold. This might be the biggest, well, since 9/11. But even I feel like it's bigger than 9/11. I feel like
in a lab.
I feel like the word pandemic is starting to become a real thing, and I'm paranoid enough to believe that could be a possibility, but I'm not solid enough on any theory, no matter what the source is, to go out and see. Because if you're wrong about it being real, and you're taking the precautions, then what have you lost except you know a little bit of time? I mean, I'm not talking about businesses, I'm talking about individuals, of course, but and if you're wrong about it being a real thing on the other end of the spectrum, you might die and you might cause other people to die. And we're seeing those stories. We're seeing people, I feel like almost every day there's some photo of like this guy led a protest in Florida or Texas or wherever the fuck.
Now he's dead.
Promoting that this whole thing was a hoax, and now he's dead from the hoax.
That I had today was, do you think that there were people in like 1918 going, it's a hoax, bruh?
Totally, I saw.
I think so.
About that.
Not on this level, but I think so. Yeah.
Well, I think the validity of it is like people that were denying like school shootings. Like, no, that school shooting never happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's dead kids. You know what I mean? It's like this is definitely a fucking virus that's making people sick. Whether you think it's 5G, which you might be a little bit of a nutcase, or be it like a fucking bug.
Yeah, or believing the numbers. Yeah,
it's real. It's not fake. A lot of those people that were protesting, nurses out there protesting, saying this shit's real. People were sitting there saying that there were paid actors, out there doing it just to feed the conspiracy.
Well, since the invention of the internet and the event and the happening of horrible public events, there's always going to be people saying that they're crisis actors. It just seems to be a given now, no matter what the fuck.
I feel like this is definitely the biggest conspiracy theory believing. What am I trying to say? I don't know how to word it right, but I feel like it is bigger than 9/11. I feel like there was a lot of doubt and confusion immediately after 9/11, but I don't feel like there were this many people that were just like straight up swearing their allegiance behind this theory that goes against the official theory. Doesn't mean that they're wrong, but I can't imagine being that bold. When
I think it's because it's worldwide and there's more people affected, and there's even more people affected within the United States. You know what I mean? Like 9/11.
But I can't.
Everybody, but it only affected the families of 3,000 or whatever people directly that they were killed, right? So
right. But I just can't imagine rolling that dice with this kind of thing. It's like if at the end of this we all come out of it feeling a little bit silly, is that so bad?
My freedoms,
right? Yeah, the freedoms, the whole freedoms thing. Well, the Costco, making the statement about you're going to have to wear a mask and seeing how many people over my goddamn dead body. It's like, I ain't fucking shopping there no more. It's like, well, all right. But they're all going to do it if we're going to, if we all are going to crowd.
Is also that you have to pay a membership fee to go shop at Costco. So it's like.
And wear clothes. There are things you have to do. And those aren't freedom erasers. Those are rules and standards and practices. And they're constantly changing and evolving. I'm sympathetic to some degree to the kind of person who has the mindset of, I don't want to see our liberties or our freedoms impacted and slowly but surely encroached upon. And I relate to that notion. But yeah, these aren't really freedoms that people are complaining about. I don't know what people are complaining about. Comfort? Embarrassment? What the fuck is the deal with the mask? Wear your mask and shut the fuck up. That's the easiest part of this entire equation. Like, why has that become this sort of, and by the way, can we retire this if you're scared, stay home mantra It's so fucking. It's made to insult. It's made to poke people with the stick. But people are genuinely saying it to like try to make their point. It's like, this isn't about being a scaredy cat to go back in the world, and it's so insulting and demeaning and belittling that it's just another way of keeping things divided in a time where we should probably be pretty fucking united, or at least somewhere. I mean, this is a fucking pandemic, man. That's what they're telling us, and I go back to the same fucking thing. We don't know, so don't you got to go along with the status quo for a while to some degree? But now we're about to go with the experiment in the casinos, and I think we're going to learn a lot. Go ahead, Lau.
I gotta hear you say, you calling me a pussy or not? You calling me a pussy?
Call me a fucking pussy.
You call me a pussy?
Stay home with your fucking queer masks if you want. It's the strangest fucking division, man. It's the strangest thing that we are seeing people acting like they understand anything, let alone there's probably like 2 or 3 top things that you have to go to school to become. A viral specialist is probably pretty close to that top 3, maybe 5. Definitely top 10, right? It's got to be up there. I'm sorry for you trade folk out there. You're out of your fucking element. Stop preaching like you have the slightest fucking clue about what you're talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. You could be right, but you don't fucking know because you don't know shit about what you're weighing in so heavily on. I don't fucking get it. Like, it was bad enough when it was about like 9/11 or, government conspiracy theories or, one government scandal or the next. That's one thing to like get all huffy and puffy over that and divide and conquer and what have you. But this is a possible plague, and we're doing this. Fucking fascinating. So yeah, don't you want a mask? But you got to have safety goggles too. You don't want to get in your nose. Well, your nose should be covered, except for the jackasses that I see wearing masks that don't cover the nose.
Can I just go on a little rant here right now? Like, the times that I have been out in public recently and see people wearing masks that are pulled down under their nose or under their chin, or it's like, what the fuck are you even doing? Like,
yeah. Do you know how the body works? But the people don't fucking think. Yeah. I'm getting kind of comfortable in my bandana. I got to tell you, I don't have any problem with it. I look like a gay outlaw and,
like
more like a gay outlaw.
That Tiger King look, I've been hoping you would.
Christopher Queen, please use the proper clature. Did you see that? You had to have seen that Nicolas Cage is about to play the. I think that is the quite possibly the most useless adaptation in history. That movie needs zero dramatization. Dramatization.
I'm more of a tiger protector.
It's already as good as it's ever gonna get. Who needs to see people acting that out? I don't get it.
Yeah,
maybe as a musical.
I can't wait. I'll watch it. I can't wait.
This tiger's out of its mind, Satan.
I'll shoot you.
Fucking bitch. Though now that I'm talking myself into it, I do kind of that bitch Carol Baskins. I'm gonna shoot her in the fucking head. Well, I'm telling you, man, I did. And then he just goes into singing. Man, this place is fucking nuts. That bitch Carol Baskin. When did you tell me that he wasn't actually singing those songs?
It was not him.
It did blow my mind that he was such a good singer.
I just watched yesterday the after episode hosted by Joel McHale where he like interviewed a lot of the people, and that one dude, his ex-husband that had all the missing teeth.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh no, that wasn't him singing at all."
Yeah, I remember seeing an article about him being pissed that they only showed him with his missing teeth because apparently he got his teeth fixed like halfway through production of that documentary, but they never showed him with his new teeth. I don't want to spoil the.
Yeah, I showed him. He had his teeth in when he was talking to Joel McHale. Looks great.
He was a handsome. I thought both of his husbands, straight young husbands, were good looking dudes. I personally didn't find Joe himself to be physically attractive, but the allure of meth and tigers and power. Yeah,
combination.
fucking bizarre story, man. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of talked myself into at least wanting to watch a few key scenes under the Nicolas Cage performance.
I see it. You got some Nick Cage in that haircut. Oh,
Yeah.
eyebrow piercings. I can't wait. Hey, I got something I want to talk about. This murder hornet sitch.
Yeah.
This is some scary
The
stuff,
seventh
man.
seal of the plague.
Yeah. So I sent you guys a video, and you may not want to watch it, but it's not one I wanted to watch, but I'm kind of glad I did. It's a video that was actually released in 2018 of a Japanese murder hornet killing a mouse.
I've seen this, yeah.
Oh, okay. So, anyways, I sent it over Facebook, and I find it to be fucking terrifying. It just keeps stinging it, and you can see the mouse like, until it just can't anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
can you imagine the pain that little body felt too with that fucking stinger going into him?
I mean, the hornet is still maybe 10 times smaller than the mouse, but it looks giant on it, you know?
Right.
Also, I've learned something really fascinating. So, I guess the way these things work is they murder bees. They send a scout out to find like a beehive, and the scout returns back, and they all go out and destroy it.
Yeah.
That's what they do. And they carry like the bee carcasses back for I don't know. I can't remember the details on that part. But interestingly, in Japan, the bees have their own defense against these murder hornets now. It's really fucking fascinating. So a murder hornet scout will come to the hive, and the bees will recognize that the scout is there, and they will swarm the hornet. They will all swarm around that one singular hornet, and they're much smaller, so it takes like a bunch of them. And what they do is instead of stinging it, they start vibrating together very rapidly, and they start heating up. And apparently,
I was hoping you'd say you'd make them come.
Yeah, oh my god, that'd be so good.
The only way to stop a murder hornet is to get it off.
But they start vibrating so fast together that they start heating it up, and they literally roast the murder hornet alive.
Whoa!
Yeah,
because apparently
so fucking insane.
That's some fucking nature.
The bees can go to like 117 degrees or 100. It's either 117 or 127. I can't remember. And the murder hornets can only go to 115 degrees. So they can raise their temperature just slightly.
Killed
higher.
by a measly 2 degrees.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
How did they know to do that?
Yeah. Fucking nature, man.
Well, I was watching a Joe Rogan episode, and he had an episode with James Hetfield of Metallica. And apparently he's a bee guy. He's raises bees in California, and he speaks about it. About 20 minutes they talk about bees, and it's just fascinating. If they ever want to like move a hive, they go in there and they pull out the queen bee, and like I guess you retransfer it, and then they all know, they all follow. It's just crazy how much they know and how much they communicate, because they communicate.
You know what? I've toured around the world. I've lived the rock star dream. I've made billions of dollars. I think I'm going to look into bees. Well, where do you go after? Here's a little video that I posted on my Facebook page. This is a guy. It's from the Animal Planet. This is Coyote Peterson. Coyote. I think it's Coyote Peterson, and he does this. He basically goes around and has venomous and poisonous and toxic or painful things bite him, so that he can immediately report back. Here is the sound of him being stung. Yeah, quite a ride by one of these hornets. Give a listen. There's a dramatic music at first here. And oof, this thing is huge. There we go.
Oh, this thing is stuck in my arm. Oh!
No.
How bad is it? Oh man, wave of dizziness really quick. Ah!
How bad is it?
Oh, searing pain.
His arm
Absolute
immediately
searing
becomes
pain.
like a grapefruit.
First when the stinger went in right there, did you see how slow that sting was? Oh! I see blood.
Oh, it's immediately just swelling.
Oh my god!
His hand goes pink and stiff. He's like a huge
Oh
bump.
my
forming. But basically,
I
it
know
just
it's tough to describe it. You gotta describe it for me. Okay.
Okay.
My hand is completely seized up and locked in place. This is like the tarantula hawk. Look at the swelling that's beginning to form on my arm. Forearm is incredibly taut. Only about 45 seconds have gone by. When the stinger went into my arm,
no, just
I had this like
the thing is
wave,
pumping.
like a wave came over me, and I got super dizzy.
I've come
Almost
3
didn't hear what was
times on the
happening,
proud side.
and then the pain just was like immediately searing.
Anyway,
Imagine. I'm a dialysis patient, dude. I got a 2-inch fucking big ass gauge needle stuck in my arm twice. Fucking every. I know that shit. That hurts.
Stingy wingy, do not want. And like COVID, Washington State apparently the first #1 in the U.S. to get the blessed murder hornet. So things are looking pretty good for our apocalypse.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, mighty
Honestly,
exciting.
What are the chances you're ever going to fucking see one of those? Like, basically 99.9%.
I hope so. God, I hope so.
Next time
You know,
go
what's
hiking.
interesting? Oh, God.
It'll be the next time you go hiking.
Yeah, definitely.
Step on ground high. Ah.
I guess who's going hiking?
Oh, way too many people.
I guess the murder hornets are a delicacy too. Like people, I
Well,
guess
in Japan.
alone, like there's 24 restaurants that serve them.
Fucking, they eat scorpions. They eat everything over there. They eat cats alive. Look it up.
Those taste like popcorn.
Cats taste like popcorn?
I don't know.
Oh, the bees.
Cats taste like
Murder.
pussy.
Which tastes like tuna, which tastes like chicken of the sea. Full circle. Yeah, I'm not going to eat me a hornet, but scary stuff and fun stuff. Let's get on to some even funner stuff. Speaking of tabloids, this is kind of a tabloidy super du jour we'll be closing the eve with. These are the sordid tales of love and sex from what I would consider surprising or odd sources. Now, take all of these with a grain of salt, because I'm sure much of these stories exist being heavily relied on first-hand accounts, hearsay, or rumors, but there's enough meat to all of them, and you can do your own research, that some of them are undeniable, like the very first one, the one that got me going down this road, and that is the very well-known, although not to me until recently, kooky sex life of Ghandi. And maybe that's a misnomer, sex life, from what most accounts are, but I was really surprised about this. And I don't really know a lot about Ghandi, honestly, other than the broad strokes. You know, I knew him as this peaceful activist, anti-colonial, yoga-preaching key figure in a time where India was struggling for its independence. And a lot of that I learned from the movie. So it's like, and then someone killed him. That's basically all I knew. But he was a bit more complex, and he wasn't really as peace-minded as we think. He kind of had like an anarchist or an extremist spirit in some parts of his life. But also when it comes to things of a sexual nature, I think a lot of you will be surprised. Now, he was said to regularly sleep with a bunch of naked young women, and he claimed that this was to test his resolve and not for him to not give in to his temptations of the pleasures of the flesh. Now, he claimed that celibacy was a way to keep the soul sacred and pure. And it seemed like he was mostly keeping to that, but he did say in his own journal entries that he occasionally would have what he called accidental discharges. And we've all been there, right? Accidental slippings, dupes. What have we got right here?
Sometimes I have intentional discharges.
Sometimes.
I had a crazy dream the other night.
But Ghandi wasn't a virgin. He married, I think he was 13. And I think just a few years into that, he got his young wife pregnant. And a few years after that, Gandhi's father was dying. He's on his deathbed, and Ghandi was sitting next to him, like holding his hand and talking with him and spending time with him. And he admitted later that, oddly enough, in the middle of that, he got horny. So he wanted to go fuck his wife. And while he was fucking his wife, he found out that his dad had passed away. So probably had some strange guilt associations with, blaming his lustful ways for not being there when his father passed away. But he still went on living a mostly normal sex life until his mid-30s, when he took a vow of celibacy for spiritual enlightenment and preached that others did the same, demanded it of his followers, actually. But he found it hard to give up sex, apparently, and so he concocted his own code that he felt he could realistically stick with while still, I think, living kind of an interesting, the Hugh Hefner of celibacy, if you will. But here's where things get weird. He set up these yoga temples and started holding experiments where young boys and girls were to bathe together, completely naked, spend time together doing exercises, sleeping together in the same bed naked, and basically just being close to each other constantly without being sexual and without
like the radar station.
That was quite the opposite. We kept our clothes on. It was nothing but sex, but that was the whole point. Was like they couldn't even talk about it. So, and they would be punished if they did. Like they would be, if they felt sexual urges coming on, they were instructed to do yoga or take cold showers or remove themselves from the temple in the worst case scenario, because he wanted them to be constantly tested and constantly in a state of frustration, I guess. But with other naked people. Did you guys know that? I didn't know that about Ghandi. I thought that was crazy. Like, it was Gandhi's Sex School, which is a 80s titty flick that I would definitely watch.
Little cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of this stuff is. But now, according to an article on the subject by The Independent, Ghandi, especially after his wife died, really ramped up these quote unquote tests, and these temples that were growing now had a lot of married couples in them, but Ghandi wouldn't allow them to sleep together. Instead, much like David Koresh, he sort of bore the burden of that. Essentially,
So
without
you're not gonna sleep with your wife, she's sleeping with me.
yeah, you don't need her. So he would have them all sleep with him naked. And according to some of the women at the time, he would ask them to essentially strip slowly in front of him and cuddle up next to him one by one for a night of staving off the devil's biz. And he would have one or two that he would be like cuddle buddies with. The rest would just be like flanking the bed or surrounding the room. And again, going back to Gandhi's own private journals, he admitted, he kind of hinted that there was some actual sexual activity going on there as part of these tests. I don't know if this was just the tip or, taking it to the next level. Like, I'm going to lick your titty and you're going to fondle my balls, but no real genital play, no real penetration. I don't know. There's a lot of conflicting ideas here, because once Gandhi's word got out and after he died, his followers went immediately to work at hiding all of this shit and burning some of his papers and some of the journals. But a lot of the eyewitness testimony got out, and some of his journals still survived, but probably went much further down that line. But Gandhi seemed not to be too secretive or ashamed about any of this. In fact, he wrote in his journals that sometimes he would accidentally slip into one of these close naked bedmates and, whoopsie daisy. And so the whole thing was basically like playing with fire, but he wanted the local papers, the national papers, to print what he was up to. So it wasn't like he was necessarily doing these things nefariously. Like, he was open about it and still maintained, and a lot of the witnesses maintained, that he seemed mostly to be celibate, and occasionally you just wake up with his dick in one of his bedmates and doops, as you do. But he did seem to be bummed out when he came. Like, that was one of his philosophies. In fact, here's a quote from that same story. "One who conserves his vital fluid acquires unfailing power." He was one of these weirdos. And this is a movement, by the way. These people that think if you refrain from jizzing, that you retain the power. Refrain the jizzing, retain the living. Write that shit down. And there's a lot of talk about this. I remember, there's like no nut Novembers. I remember a friend of mine who was in football in high school, his coach told him, and apparently this is a common thing for coaches to say, is like, basically throughout season, they would have leading up to a big game, they would tell their key players, don't fuck your girlfriend, don't jack off, save that shit up. The notion being, I suppose, that testosterone builds up and you're able to focus more and you've got more virility and essence in you. I don't know. I think you're all just going to get prostate issues. You back that shit up. But
I think we've all been there after a bad night of the devil's business by yourself, feeling that guilt. Afterward going,
I think, well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because that might actually be a part of what people are feeling, and they associate it with the loss of some sort of essence, but there can be a strange feeling after that. And I don't know, in between that and how the Bible briefly mentions the subject, or even that's in question, I think that guilt and that sense of, well, I think that might be tied with some notion of a loss of essence, but it doesn't seem like any of this has been medically or scientifically proven. On the other hand, there have been scientific and medical studies that show that if you store that shit up, it can get stagnant, and it's not good for your system. It's not good for the prostate. Regular ejaculations is healthier. I'm sure that gets argued a lot in certain religious circles, but what doesn't? But it is an ancient philosophy. I mean, it's not a new thing. I mean, when I was super busy with Radar Station, I would go easily a couple of months without even whacking it. Like, there was no energy, there was no thought.
Scratch moment from
well, it was like that was, and I mean like when I had the downtown business, because by that time I'd had downtown business a lot, and so it was like, I don't know, maybe I scratched a few itches, but also just you can be too busy. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, but you were sexually active at the time.
Yeah, I wasn't making, I wasn't making a conscious effort to not. I was just so busy. Like, I wasn't going on dates. I wasn't bringing people home. I would occasionally hang out after hours with someone there. But for the most part, it was like this, all of a sudden a couple months got behind me. I'm like, it's been a while. And, you do kind of feel differently. There's no question about it. But I didn't see it as being good or, more powerful. And anyway, I don't think that there's anything to that philosophy, the no nut bullshit, unless you're, a porn addict. I think after about a month, those benefits are likely diminished. So maybe no nut November would be, good for, if it's good for anything, it's probably good for just hitting the reset button. Like maybe if you're chasing women too much, or you're just fucking around too much, or hitting the porn and jacking off too much, maybe it's a good thing to do to, you can't overdo it, and your body can be depleted of certain resources, and it's exhausting in a certain way. So, but I think after a month, and even scientists and doctors say that after a month, or even a few weeks, the benefits of retaining that semen, even if you're like trying to have a kid, it actually starts to go back the other way, because you are constantly letting semen out. So this bullshit that especially like the Catholic Church always preach, like it's a sin to ejaculate unless you are trying to conceive, even if that's with your wife. That's why there have always been so, maybe they've lightened up on this to some degree, but traditionally, that's why they're so anti-birth control. Like, you don't fuck for fun, you fuck to create. It's like, motherfuckers, you should have had a doctor explain to you that when you don't jizz, your body jizzes itself, either through wet dreams or more commonly as you get older, you just pee it out, and then your body makes more.
You should just be a doctor, Ron. Dr. Ron.
Oh, that would be a bad idea. Dr. Ron.
Well,
Dr. Jellyfinger.
All those theories, it's all just a method of controlling people. It's nothing, no basis in any.
I always think these rules got invented by people who had specific grievances with it. Like, I bet that rule was probably invented by some priest that couldn't get it up, so he didn't want anybody having sex for fun.
In the Bible, it's something about like letting your seed hit the ground. It's about masturbating. It's the whole thing of breeding out deviants too. Like having, like, back in the day, people that were kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, the story
the whole reason for that was back then they needed more people, and so if you were doing that and not actually creating people because people fucking died so easily.
Yeah.
We don't need any more people right now. So
Yeah, don't waste
not
your
a
people
consideration.
batter. Don't paint your wife's tits with that people batter. Put it up in her oven. But now
Stop that.
Ghandi kind of got weirder as he got older. That one was too far for you. He got weirder as he got older, and which I guess we all do. But when he was 77, he told his grandniece, who was a teenager, quote, we both may be killed by the Muslims, which is quite true, actually. And we must put our purity to the ultimate test so that we know we are offering the purest of sacrifices, and we should now start sleeping together naked. This is grandniece, like 14 years old or some shit. But she did, and she stayed with him the rest of his life. In fact, she was with him when Ghandi was assassinated. But he was kind of just making shit up, and it's clear now, and I think a lot of people then even were starting to get the feeling, especially in his older years, that none of this really fit the practices that were established that he was trying to follow. And many of his devoted followers kind of became disgusted with him and jumped ship. And a lot of his own family members were starting to disavow him and claiming that he'd lost his ways and basically just lost himself up his own ass. And again, at the time, yeah, haven't we all? But at the time, India was fighting for its independence from British rule. And Ghandi wanted all of this sex experiment stuff to be part of that narrative. He wanted to be part of the revolution. But the true revolutionaries, of course, were like, no, we're having a hard time getting people on our side as it is. And so in 1948, a Hindu nationalist ambushed Ghandi on his way to a prayer meeting, shot him dead. And a lot of his followers scrambled to cover up all of these sexual parts out of his journals and the diaries, and some of them had already been published. And again, a lot of the cat was out of the bag just from eyewitness accounts. But it's just like more shit has come to light, so to speak, about Ghandi, and he ain't the dude that a lot of people thought he was. But
if you lived in a parallel world and you were in India back when Ghandi was like in his 30s, and he invited you into the game closet, would you go in there?
Into the what closet?
The game closet.
No, I wouldn't go anywhere with Ghandi. He's not my type. No, his grandniece. Anyway, now this got me going down a bit of a rabbit hole. It was like I wanted to know more sexual oddness from possibly surprising sources. So I started digging, and some of these might not be too terribly surprising, but again, news to me, including Lyndon B. Johnson. Now, apparently, the aptly named Lyndon B. Johnson, he allegedly had a huge dick that he would often whip out in public or the men's room or other inappropriate times and places. And he would just say, you ever seen anything so big in your goddamn life? Like several people said, he basically said something like that. Just like,
said, God damn.
Yeah, look at this fucking thing. It was just like, it's like a big dick dude with small dick complex. It's just like, yeah, always had to whip it out and show it off. But allegedly, he referred to his dick as Jumbo. And like everybody that knew him and worked for him knew this. They knew that he
Y'all
called his...
seen Jumbo in a while? Zip.
It hadn't been a while because everyone had seen it. Like everyone, basically... anyone that was close to him and worked close, like they all knew that name. They all knew the name of his dick. They'd either, if they hadn't seen his dick, they all at least knew its name because he would always talk about it. And he would apparently often pee in front of female staffers and other politicians. One female reported once that he just straight up flashed her while she was interviewing him. And it's pretty well known that Johnson had a lot of affairs on his wife, but the one that took the cake was with Madeline Brown that apparently lasted over 20 fucking years. That's a doozy of an affair.
That's another fam.
That is another fam. Yeah, well, he did. My favorite tidbit here, though, was from a Johnson biographer that said if the topic of Kennedy's sexual affairs ever came up in meetings, Johnson would get so fucking pissed that he would yell things like, one quote was, "I've had more affairs accidentally than JFK ever did on purpose." It's like what a little man-child he was. He's just so fucking jealous and insecure that he had to whip his... a thing that he had nothing to do with, by the way, his God-given Jumbo. out. What a fucking clown, a sad little clown. But I love that he was envious of JFK, which kind of feeds into the whole JFK assassination myth. You know, that's probably the biggest conspiracy theory. Of all the theories, most people seem to agree. Most conspiracy theorists agree that it was Johnson that ultimately took out JFK. Maybe because he didn't think his dick was big enough, or he just wanted to have the ultimate cock in the White House. Very, very strange. Albert Einstein was another person that had apparently sordid tales that have also come to light more recently through a discovery of a bunch of his old letters and journals and just personal accounts. Now, he wanted to divorce his first wife, Mileva Merrick, I think is how you pronounce it, who was a fellow scientist, and she was a genius in her own right, but she contested it. So, you know, it was a different time back then. It was hard to divorce if it was contested. So his response to her contesting it was to make this list of demands that she would have to live up to, which is kind of genius. Shitty, but genius. I mean, he wanted to leave her. But on this list were mostly demands of housekeeping, but with very detailed specifics, you know, about things like how his shirts were to be folded, what time his meals needed to arrive, how hot they needed to be. The kinds of bags that his grocery shopping need to be brought home in, the order. I mean, just like crazy stuff, but also strict rules about avoiding conversations, avoiding any intimacy, any contact with him or other specific people that he mentioned. At first, Merrick agreed, but then, you know, I think I feel like it was a few months, but it could have been a year or two later. She was like, fine, dick, I'll divorce you. Now, he'd been up to no good with women all along. And Merrick, by the way, has been credited by historians and experts and scientists alike, saying that she was like paramount in helping Einstein work out a lot of these major early breakthroughs that he had. You know, they would sit around the kitchen table and have these deep scientific discussions and bouncing things off each other. And apparently Einstein never gave her a credit for that. Wow, but everyone that knew them knew that she was a huge, I mean, they were his theories and his work ultimately, but she was a huge part in helping it. And, but one of the affairs Einstein had was with his first cousin, Elsa. And a short while after he and Merrick split, he married Elsa, but was almost immediately fucking his secretary, who was also his best friend's niece. It's just like he had major boundary issues, you could say, of Einstein. Now, he had stated later on in life that he thought monogamy was simply a made-up social construct and that it went against nature itself. And he clearly liked the idea of having a main gal in his life, but he was never going to keep little Einstein caged up in the laboratory for long. So I think later on he figured out I should probably just say I'm going to fuck whoever I want to fuck, let the chips fall where they may. But some of his writings that have been made public recently also say that Einstein blew almost all of his Nobel Prize money buying gifts for his various girlfriends rather than putting it back into scientific research, which is very genius, you might say. Interesting peak.
You know what I mean? It's an ego, kind of like celebrity thing.
Oh, yeah. He was absolutely famous in his time, yeah. It wasn't one of these after the fact kind of guys. This is one of my favorites. In fact, I'm going to save this for the end. Let me cut and paste. Because really, where can you go from that? But I discovered it earlier in my research. Here's one for you sports fans. Now, the New York Yankees outfielder Hideki Matsui got some Ghandi-like advice, similar Ghandi-like advice when he was starting out his career. One of his coaches gave him the old, if you want to be great, you got to give up the pussy, rebel rouse. But this was the other angle of it. Like, he didn't say you had to retain your seed. He was like, don't go chasing girls around because that's too much of a distraction. And Matsui took it pretty seriously. So, but his method of coping was essentially to amass an insane porn collection. Like huge.
hear
Like, like by 2012, he apparently had over 50,000 videos. And this is like DVD and tapes, hundreds of thousands of magazines. You know, like, again, it wasn't the loss of essence. It was the distraction of chasing women around. He was actually open about this, and he even joked about it from time to time. Pretty interesting dude. He would joke about it at press conferences, but nobody really knew until he finally like showed off his fucking collection. I think he started selling some of it off. But
friend of the family that was a good friend of my brother's that he got married. He was a stag forever. You know, he was probably like almost 50 when he got married, and he offered me his porn collection. And it was literally, I'm not even joking, I'm not even fucking shitting you one bit. It was an apple crate full of fucking VHS.
Boy, I bequeath you my apple crate.
Dude, you couldn't even fit in the back of your truck.
Was it like everything, like tapes and magazines?
Magazines and stuff. I was like,
I might take some of the tapes. I don't know if I want them magazines.
Good, because there's no way you did. How you gonna? You can't even hide that.
Yeah, you got to rent a forklift.
Yeah, it was insane. It's a real thing. Yeah.
That's fucking funny. He, some reporter, I guess, did the math on these numbers on his collection, and they came to the conclusion that there's no possible way that he ever could have watched all those videos and still have lived any kind of normal life. And this is all while his career was still going on and sleeping, you know, there's no way it was possible. So he just kind of developed as a hobby, but something to aim for there, Chris. Apple bin. But it's funny, it's like the notion of physical porn is so odd right now, other than like old collectibles. Like I have all these Playboy magazines. I don't really consider them porn, but I guess it's in that wheelhouse. But I'd probably have some hardcore shit laying around here somewhere that I keep for either old time's sakes or just the aesthetic. Like I like the look of smut. It's kind of like tabloids. It's like I love print, I love magazines, and I love seedy shit and cheap, pulpy, just extra slickness here and about. But it is funny to think that there was a time when you had to have physical shit, you know, like just VHS tapes and magazines. And I thought that was a funny one, worth mentioning. Another one that's quickly worth mentioning, just a little tidbit. Ben Franklin apparently took what he called air baths. Which was really just him sitting naked in his open window or door frame of his house, usually first thing in the morning, and many of his neighbors just got used to seeing Ben's Franklin as part of their daily ritual. Just like, hi, Ben. Hi, little Ben. Like, yeah, just keep walking. All of his neighbors, like everyone that knew him, knew that he just was a naked, bulbous, flabby dude. I mean, you can all picture that.
Have you seen my cat with my key on it?
Yeah. I think I'll go fly me a kite in the nude. Anyway, I found that one not so sexually deviant, but a little piece of trivia I never heard about. Now, more and more evidence is coming out to support the rumor that Tom Cruise held girlfriend auditions. I think we talked about this at one point. Like immediately after Nicole Kidman, split, a few actresses have explained the process, and they said it wasn't like a charming thing at all. It was like an interrogation. Because the movie Audition, the horror movie Audition, was that premise. It was, I think a guy helped his dad or his uncle's grandpa or something. I don't remember. It's been a while. It's like, your wife died years ago. You should get back out there. But he was like a filmmaker, a director. He was like, how about we set up a bunch of auditions? I mean, you can interview them and try it. It was kind of like a cutesy thing until he met the one. I don't know if y'all have seen Audition. Even now, it's still pretty shocking. But when it came out, it was super shocking. Japanese film, Takeshi Miike. Or Miike, I have no idea how you say his fucking name. Motherfucker's crazy and one of my favorite directors, but my favorite stuff of his was the DOA, the Dead or Alive trilogy, because that shit is just fucking bananas. There's a dude that's just like furiously shoving noodles into his gut, and he's like a mob boss or something. And some hitmen come in with shotguns and they shoot him in the gut, and you see like the Matrix shot of the noodles that he just swallowed go flying by the screen. Jesus. It's fucked up. It's pretty gross and great. Anyway, so they said this was a real thing, wasn't charming, and it was like a CIA interrogation. And I guess he did get a girlfriend, but it was apparently through the Church of Scientology, according to, was her name Leah Remini, something like that. Have you heard her?
King of Queens?
Yeah, she's like one of these famous denouncers. Remini.
She had a document, like a
all that
series
shit
about it.
for him. Yeah, totally. She totally has a series, and it's totally fascinating.
Yeah.
But all that shit for Tom Cruise, he's like one of their highest level fucking people.
Oh yeah,
All
you
that
keep
shit
the
is
Tom
done
happy.
for him.
If they lost Tom,
Yeah.
they would lose a lot. But so they said that the girlfriend was sort of ushered onto Tom by the church and told, you should be more sexually aggressive with him. This one girl was said to have experienced, and she has lots of CD tales from that organization. Leah wasn't the girl, but she was telling tales of this girl. But anyway, so I came across that. No matter what website I was searching for these kinds of stories on, Tom Cruise popped up with something fucked up about power grabs in the church and being instructed to basically be subservient to Tom, do what he wants. He likes it, sexually aggressive. It was really creepy insight to what I think we're all feeling more and more as a creepy dude. Here's one that surprised me, and I should have known more about because I am in the art world, but famous art collector and gallerist Peggy Guggenheim apparently had an insatiable, I should say, appetite for the young, handsome bucks all the way into her 70s. And she would use her power and money to seduce the ones that, she couldn't attract. By most accounts, she wasn't a very attractive woman. In fact, Jackson Pollock once said publicly, you'd have to put a towel over your head to fuck her. That's an exact quote.
Awesome.
There are lots of young, enterprising artists looking to show their work at the Guggenheim galleries or wherever she was she was a big name anywhere. And if they wanted to hang on her walls, they had to hang on her walls. Conductor Thomas Shippers once asked Peggy how many husbands she had had. And Peggy was quoted as saying, "You mean my own or other people's?" She didn't have many ethics or codes. She would just fuck whoever she wanted to fuck if she could. But by most accounts, her number was well over 1,000, which is pretty good for a fugly old queen.
You got something to work forward to there, Ron?
Quite the go-getter. Yeah. Good Lord, quadruple digits. I know a few people that claim it. After living a few years of the life that I was living, I could see how you could hit that number surprisingly quickly, if I'm being honest. But no, nowhere near. I'm nowhere near that, I promise. But I'm way more near it than I was. Okay, now ending on this one, which is my favorite. Author James Joyce had a particular kink that is more than worth mentioning. Now, again, not surprising that a writer was into kinky shit, but it's a tale I hadn't heard. And apparently the author of the very flowery and poetic works of like Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake was really into farts. So much so that he wrote a wee love letter to his wife, Nora. Well, specifically to her farts. Listen in on this, gang. This is an exact snippet from the selected letters of James Joyce. You had an arse full of farts that night, darling, and I fucked them out of you. Big fat fellows, long windy ones, quick little merry cracks, and a lot of tiny little naughty farties ending in a long gush from your hole.
This sounds like the lyrics to like an NWA song.
It is wonderful to fuck a farting woman when every fuck drives one of her... Let me read that again. It is wonderful to fuck
Sounds
a
like a
farting...
Oh, you need to edit with farts in it too.
Remember that fart
Like
porn I
saying,
played?
You do it and we'll do it.
Yeah. All right. It is wonderful
Sounds like
to...
a Mentor song.
Yeah, it is very punk rock. It is wonderful to... you wouldn't think this was coming from one of the most celebrated writers in literature. It is wonderful, he goes on, to fuck a farting woman when every fuck drives one out of her. I think I would know Nora's fart anywhere. I think I could pick hers out of a room full of farting women. It is a rather girlish noise, not like the wet, windy fart, which I imagine fat wives have. This is James fucking Joyce.
He's really going into this.
Became my favorite writer ever. It is sudden and dry and dirty, like what a bold girl would let off in fun. Would let off in fun in a school dormitory at night.
Really paints a picture.
Well, he's one of our most flowery poets. I hope Nora will. It still goes on. I hope Nora will let off no end of her farts in my face, so that I may know their smell also.
Man, that's a love story.
Fart Love by world-renowned author.
Love Taco Tuesdays.
That's like the literary equivalent of that friend that you had that just always drew dicks everywhere.
Right. Yeah, except if that friend could actually draw, like if it was, like Da Vinci, like sketches, like they were anatomically correct.
Exactly.
Anyway, well, there you have it. I've got a few more of those, but I think those are the broad strokes. Those are good enough. And looking at the clock, we got ourselves a full enough show. So let's get on out of here. We do want to set up another Cinema Club showing, and I think, Christopher, you had a pick ready to go, yeah?
Yeah, I think Swiss Army Man was I want to see how the comedy plays out, and it's kind of a dark, weird comedy, but I'd like to see. I think it's a movie right up our alley for humor wise. I really enjoyed it, and it doesn't sound like any of you've seen it.
No.
So I think we should do it. I think it'd be fun. Yeah.
Shall we say Saturday?
8 p.m.
8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or Daylight Time. Yes. I guess we're still.
And this, I'm assuming we're just gonna put this one out again for freezies since we don't.
Let's do it for free. Yeah, I haven't even looked at Patreon. Honestly, I don't think we've got much going on there right now. But if you want to jump on board to support, patreon.com/Tales from the Space Pod. And a lot of you have reached out via email lately, and I think we'll probably next episode we'll get into some of those emails. I shared a couple with you guys lately, and one today that was really good from Todd, and we'll be reading that in the not too distant future. All you have to do is join us on our Facebook page, the How Bizarre Facebook page, and we'll post a link. I'll make a post. I think it worked out well last time where I make the initial post letting everybody know, and then look down in the comments and you'll see a link. All you got to do is click that link. And I feel like maybe you need to have Netflix installed, but we haven't tested that yet. But if you have Netflix, definitely join us.
You have a Netflix account.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll see the instructions on what to do there. Really, all you have to do is click on that red little N and go to town with us, and you'll be able to watch it in real time with us and comment. And should be a fun time. And then we'll, after that, we'll do a recap, a movie club recap. All right. Well, let's get on out of here. Ron at Boron Films, or Radar Station Art at gmail.com. Let's go with that one henceforth. If you have any show suggestions, want to be on the show, or if you just have some feedback, we love your feedback. Keep spreading the word. Numbers are a little down for us, which I think is surprising and not surprising. It's surprising because everyone's really relying on content right now, but not surprising because maybe not everyone wants to hear the kind of shit that we're talking about as much as chasing down other avenues. But do spread the word. And if you want to do a one-time support, instead of subscribing to Patreon, you can do paypal.me/thecommentmag, because we couldn't make it more confusing. We have 5 different entities, but they all go to the same very lonely bank account. And I'm still working on that stimulus package, but a lot of people have been donating for me to get a computer. I just got a pretty sizable check today to go toward a new computer, so I'll probably be getting one soon.
All right, man.
Yeah. Nice. Then we'll be doing video
guys.
like a motherfucker. All right, y'all. Wash your hands. Stay safe. We will see you soon. Fucking, they eat scorpions. They eat everything over there. They eat cats alive. Look it up.
It's supposed to taste like popcorn.
Cats taste like popcorn?